Part 5. The Neighbor Old Man Henderson. Mrs. Garza's next-door neighbor on the ground floor. A retired longshoreman with a perpetually sour expression and a penchant for yelling at kids who cut across his tiny patch of lawn. Melinda had rarely spoken to him beyond a grudging nod. Now, his grumpy voice was the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. Help. The word tore from her raw throat, weak, mangled, barely audible over the buzzing light and the distant bass. Help me, please. She forced her head up, craning her neck towards the alley entrance. Henderson stood silhouetted against the slightly brighter streetlight, squinting into the gloom. He wore a stained white undershirt and baggy pajama pants, his hair sticking up wildly. He held a heavy-duty flashlight, its beam lancing erratically into the alley, momentarily blinding her. Huh? Who's there? His voice was wary. That you, Melinda? What the hell you doing down there? The beam swept past her, catching the glittering glass, then swung back, finally settling on her. The flashlight beam pinned her. It illuminated the shocking tableau in stark, unforgiving detail. Her face streaked with blood, tears, and grime, her wide, terror-stricken eyes. Her naked torso covered in scrapes, cuts, and blooming bruises, the grotesque angle of her right leg, the unnatural twist of her bound hands behind her back, the dark, wet trail leading back to the dumpster and the shattered window above. Henderson's jaw dropped. The gruffness vanished, replaced by pure, unvarnished shock. Holy Mother of God! The flashlight beam trembled in his hand. What happened? He took a hesitant step forward, then another, his eyes wide with disbelief and dawning horror. He stopped a few feet away, seemingly frozen by the sheer brutality before him. Jesus, kid. Your leg man upstairs Melinda gasped, the words thick with pain and desperation. She tried to point with her chin towards her apartment window, but the movement sent fresh agony through her neck and shoulder. He tried to kill me he might still be Her voice dissolved into ragged sobs, the terror finally overwhelming the adrenaline that had propelled her this far. She started shaking uncontrollably, the shock setting in deep. Henderson's gaze snapped upwards, following her attempted gesture. He raised the flashlight beam, illuminating the broken window. The jagged edges of glass looked like fangs in the harsh light. The curtain fluttered weakly in the faint night breeze. Nothing moved in the dark rectangle. No face peered out. Stay right there. Don't move, Henderson commanded, his voice regaining some strength, though it still held a tremor. He took a step back, then another, his eyes darting between Melinda and the window. He clearly didn't want to turn his back. I'm calling the cops. Ambulance. Just hold on, kid. He fumbled in his pajama pocket, pulling out a set of keys. He backed towards his own door, only a few feet from the alley entrance, never taking his eyes off the shattered window above. He unlocked his door with shaking hands, practically fell inside, and slammed it shut. A second later, Melinda heard the distinct, heavy thunk of a deadbolt engaging. Alone again. The harsh beam of Henderson's flashlight, abandoned on the alley floor where he dropped it in his haste, illuminated a cone of concrete, blood, and her shattered leg. It cast monstrous, dancing shadows. The buzzing light above seemed louder, the stench of the dumpster stronger, the pain deeper, colder, the terror sharper. He was still up there, watching. Henderson had seen the window, heard her. He knew help was coming. Would he flee? Or would he come down now, before they arrived, to silence her forever? Every nerve ending screamed. Every shadow seemed to shift. Every distant sound, a car door slamming, a dog barking, felt like his approaching footsteps. She strained her ears, listening for the creak of the stairwell door inside the building, for the soft tread of boots on the concrete. Nothing. Only the frantic hammering of her own heart, the ragged saw of her breath, and the insistent, terrifying silence from above. The cold from the concrete seeped into her bones, a counterpoint to the fiery pain. Shock was a heavy blanket, threatening to smother her. Her vision blurred at the edges. Stay awake. Stay awake. She bit her lip hard, tasting fresh blood, using the pain as an anchor. She focused on the beam of the flashlight, on the pattern of cracks in the concrete within its circle, on the distant wail of a siren. Was it getting closer? Or was it just in her head? She couldn't tell anymore. Time became elastic, stretching and snapping. Seconds felt like minutes. Minutes felt like hours. Part 6. First responders. The first siren wasn't in her head. It cut through the night, sharp and urgent, growing rapidly louder. Then another joined it. Red and blue lights strobed against the buildings at the mouth of the alley, painting the brick walls in garish, alternating colors. Tires screeched, doors slammed, voices loud and official cut through the haze. Over here. Allie, she's back here. Henderson's voice shouting from his doorway. Heavy, booted footsteps pounded on the pavement, approaching the alley entrance. 2 uniformed Houston police officers appeared, silhouetted against the swirling lights, hands hovering near their holstered weapons. Their flashlight beams, brighter and whiter than Henderson's, swept the alley, converging on Melinda's broken form. Jesus Christ, one officer breathed, his voice tight with shock. He was younger, his face pale under the streetlight glow reflected in the alley. Secure the scene, Miller. The older officer barked, his voice rough but controlled. He kept his light and his gaze scanning upwards, towards the broken window, then down the length of the alley, his hand resting firmly on his gun. Check the perimeter. Watch the stairs. Suspect may still be on scene or in the building. He moved forward cautiously, his light now fixed on Melinda, but his eyes constantly scanning the shadows, the dumpster, the fire escapes. Ma'am, can you hear me? Houston Police? Help is here. Melinda tried to speak, but only a whimper escaped her cracked lips. Tears streamed anew, this time a confusing mix of relief and residual terror. The lights, the voices, the presence of authority. It was overwhelming. The dam holding back the full force of her shock, and pain began to crack. Suspect description? The older officer asked, crouching a few feet away from her, careful not to step in the blood trail. His eyes were sharp, assessing her injuries, the bindings, the escape route above. Did you see him leave? Carl ... Watts, Melinda rasped, the name feeling like ground glass in her throat. He ... he was in my apartment ... He tied me. He watched me jump ... Her voice broke. He had ... dead eyes. Suspect description? The older officer asked, crouching a few feet away from her, careful not to step in the blood trail. His eyes were sharp, assessing her injuries, the bindings, the escape route above. Did you see him leave? Carl ... Watts, Melinda rasped, the name feeling like ground glass in her throat. He ... He was in my apartment ... He tied me ... He watched me jump ... Her voice broke. He had. Dead eye. The officer nodded grimly, keying the small microphone clipped to his shoulder. Dispatch, be advised. Victim is conscious and alert. Identify suspect as Carl Watts. Suspect possibly still in vicinity of 1427 Elm. Second floor apartment. Window egress used by victim. Request additional units for building search and perimeter. Suspect is armed and extremely dangerous. He listened for a moment. Copy that. EMS is 2 minutes out. He turned his attention fully back to Melinda, his demeanor shifting slightly from tactical assessment to urgent care. Okay, ma'am. Melinda? My name's Officer Vega. EMS is almost here. Just try to stay still, okay? Don't try to move. You're safe now." His voice was firm, but surprisingly gentle. He kept his flashlight beam steady, but angled it away from her face slightly. "Can you tell me where it hurts the most?" "Leg?" she gasped. "Shoulder ... wrists ... everywhere ... The shaking intensified. The cold was becoming pervasive, seeping into her core despite the humid night air. She felt lightheaded, detached. The swirling red and blue lights painted dizzying patterns on the alley walls. The younger officer, Miller, returned from a quick sweep. "No sign of anyone in the alley, Sarge. Stairwell door inside is locked from the common hallway side. Backup is setting perimeter. M's just pulled up front." Almost on cue, the distinct wail of an ambulance siren joined the cacophony, cutting off abruptly as it pulled to a stop out front. Moments later, 2 M's technicians hurried into the alley, carrying a bulky orange trauma bag and a folded stretcher. Their movements were swift, efficient, but their eyes widened as they took in the scene illuminated by the overlapping flashlight beams. "Okay, what do we got?" The lead MT, a woman with short, dark hair and calm eyes, asked Officer Vega as she knelt beside Melinda, immediately beginning her assessment. Her partner opened the trauma bag. "Female, early 20s, fall from second-story window, approximately 15 feet," Vega reported crisply. "Obvious compound fracture, right lower leg. Suspected left shoulder dislocation or fracture. Multiple lacerations from broken glass. Hands bound behind back with cord. Reported assault prior to fall by a male intruder named Carl Watts. Suspect may still be at large in the building." "Got it," the EMT nodded, her focus entirely on Melinda now. Her touch was professional, but surprisingly gentle as she quickly felt for major bleeding, checked her airway, and assessed her level of consciousness. "Hi, Melinda. I'm Sarah. This is Ben. We're going to take care of you, okay? Just try to stay still for us. Can you tell me your full name? Do you know what day it is?" "Melinda Aguilar," she whispered, clinging to the simple questions as anchors. "Sunday ... I think. My shift ... ended late." The effort was immense. The world was starting to tunnel, the edges of her vision darkening, the voices sounding muffled and far away. The pain, a constant roar, seemed to recede slightly, replaced by a terrifying numbness. "Good, Melinda. That's good," Sarah said, her voice steady. She pulled trauma shears from her belt. "Then stabilize that leg. See collar. We need to cut these bindings carefully." Ben moved to Melinda's shattered leg, his hands swift and sure as he prepared a splint. Sarah carefully slid the blunt tips of the shears under the cord binding Melinda's wrists. The synthetic material resisted for a second, then parted with a sharp snip. The sudden release of pressure sent fresh, fiery pins and needles shooting through Melinda's hands and arms, but it was a welcome pain compared to the constriction. Sarah gently guided Melinda's arms down to her sides, wincing at the deep, bloody grooves the cord had left in the swollen flesh. As Sarah secured a rigid cervical collar around Melinda's neck, Ben worked swiftly on her leg. Even through the haze of shock, Melinda felt the manipulation, the pressure, the sickening grating of bone fragments. A low moan escaped her. "I know, honey, I know," Sarah murmured. "Almost done. We're going to get you out of here." She attached a pulse oximeter to Melinda's finger, its red light blinking steadily. "BP's dropping, Ben. Hypovolemic shock setting in. Let's get the 4 started. LR wide open. Prep for rapid extrication." The sting of the 4 needle in her left arm was a distant prick. Melinda felt herself being lifted with infinite care onto the hard plastic backboard, then secured with wide straps. The movement jostled her broken leg, sending a fresh wave of nauseating pain that momentarily cleared the fog. She cried out, her eyes flying open. Above her, through the gap between the buildings, she could see the dark rectangle of her broken window. For a heart-stopping second, She thought she saw a shape there, a silhouette against the dim light from her apartment, watching those empty eyes. "He's there," she gasped, trying to point, her arm restrained by the strap. "The window. He's watching." Officer Vega and Miller snapped their lights and weapons upwards instantly. The beams cut through the gloom, illuminating the empty window frame. The curtain fluttered. Nothing else moved. Clear. Miller called out after a tense moment, his voice tight. "Probably long gone," Vega muttered, lowering his weapons slightly, but keeping his light trained on the window. "But we'll tear that place apart. Get her moving," he said to the EMTs. As they lifted the stretcher, Melinda's last conscious sight was of the broken window, receding as they carried her towards the swirling lights and the waiting ambulance. The alley light buzzed. The smell of blood and garbage filled her nostrils. The echo of those dead eyes lingered in the dark square of glass. Then, blessed darkness swallowed her whole,